Nestled in the heart of Nepal, surrounded by lush valleys and towering peaks, lay a village that seemed untouched by the chaos of the outside world. This serene hamlet was home to Rohan, a young man whose reputation for remaining calm and unshaken, even in the most trying circumstances, had become legendary among the villagers. While others were swept away by waves of anger, fear, or sorrow, Rohan stood as an anchor of tranquility. This remarkable ability drew both admiration and curiosity, and one fateful day, the villagers gathered the courage to ask him, "Rohan, how is it that you remain so calm, no matter what happens?" Rohan responded with a warm, knowing smile, his eyes twinkling as if holding secrets forged in the depths of wisdom. "Let me tell you a story," he began, his voice steady and inviting. "It is not magic or some extraordinary gift, but a journey, a path that anyone can walk if they so choose." Years earlier, as a restless boy, Rohan had wandered into the dense forest that encircled the village, seeking solace from a heart weighed down by emotions he couldn't understand. The forest was alive with the whispers of wind threading through ancient trees, but amidst the wilderness, he stumbled upon a secluded cave. Inside, an aged monk sat cross-legged in meditation, his presence emanating an air of profound serenity. Intrigued, Rohan waited in silence, watching the monk with childlike curiosity. Hours passed before the monk opened his eyes and regarded the boy with a gentle smile. "Young one," he said, his voice like a soft breeze, "you carry the weight of storms within you. Tell me, what troubles you?" Rohan hesitated, but then poured out his confusion. "I feel emotions so strongly. Anger, sadness, fear. They come like waves and overwhelm me. How can I find peace when my heart is constantly at war?" The monk nodded knowingly and invited Rohan to sit beside him. Thus began Rohan's first lesson in mindfulness, a practice the monk likened to watching clouds drift across the sky. "Your emotions," the monk explained, "are like these clouds. They may darken the skies, but they will always pass. Do not cling to them or push them away. Simply observe them, and they will lose their power over you." At first, this sounded impossibly simple. Rohan found it challenging to quiet his restless mind, but the monk encouraged persistence. Every day, Rohan would sit under the shade of a Bodhi tree, focusing on his breath and the sensations within his body. As weeks turned into months, he noticed subtle changes. The waves of his emotions no longer felt like tsunamis threatening to drown him, but gentle tides that ebbed and flowed. The monk also introduced him to the concept of empathy. Detachment from emotion, he said, does not mean detachment from people. To truly master your emotions, you must cultivate empathy for yourself and for others. Understand their struggles, and your own heart will become lighter. Rohan took these words to heart. He began small, offering a listening ear to his fellow villagers, helping them with their daily burdens. Over time, his quiet presence became a source of comfort for many. People marveled at his ability to remain calm in the face of conflict, but they also recognized the warmth with which he engaged their pain. He was not a man without emotion, but one who had learned to navigate its depths with grace. Years passed, and Rohan's reputation as a sage-like figure grew. When a great storm ravaged the village, destroying homes and livelihoods, it was Rohan who stood unshaken amidst the chaos. He comforted the grieving and helped organize efforts to rebuild, teaching the villagers a profound lesson. "Emotions are natural," he said, "but they need not control us. Acknowledge their presence, but remember that they are impermanent, like the storm itself." Rohan's wisdom spread far beyond the village, but he felt a lingering sense that his journey was incomplete. The monk who had first guided him often spoke of a distant monastery high in the Himalayas, where ancient teachings delved deeper into the mysteries of the mind and emotions. With a heart full of gratitude and determination, Rohan bid farewell to his village and embarked on a treacherous journey to this sacred place. The path was arduous, testing Rohan's resolve at every turn. Jagged cliffs, biting winds, and unrelenting snowdrifts challenged his endurance, but he pressed on, driven by a hunger for deeper understanding. When he finally arrived, The monastery stood as a beacon of serenity, perched on a misty cliff that seemed to touch the heavens. The monks welcomed Rohan with open arms, and he soon met Master Li, a humble yet profoundly wise teacher who had spent decades unraveling the intricacies of the human psyche. Under Master Li's guidance, Rohan delved into teachings that transcended anything he had learned before. He was introduced to Vipassana meditation, a practice that required confronting the root causes of emotional suffering, attachments, fears, and insecurities that lay buried deep within the subconscious. This was no easy task. As Rohan meditated, old wounds resurfaced, moments of humiliation, unspoken fears, and the ache of lost connections. But Master Li encouraged him to face these shadows with courage and compassion. The path to true balance, he said, lies not in escaping your emotions but in understanding them. Only then can you transcend their hold. Through this process, Rohan discovered a profound truth. His calm demeanor was not the absence of emotion, but the result of a deeper integration of his emotional self. This understanding transformed his perspective. He realized that by embracing his own vulnerability, he could offer even greater empathy and wisdom to others. After years of study, Rohan felt a calling to return to his village. When he arrived, the villagers were struck by the change in him. He radiated a peace that seemed almost tangible, and his presence brought an unspoken reassurance to all who met him. He shared the lessons he had learned at the monastery, teaching the villagers to see their emotions as natural and fleeting, to embrace self-awareness, and to respond to life's challenges with compassion. The village, inspired by Rohan's journey, began to thrive as a community grounded in emotional resilience and mutual support. As Rohan's story unfolded, it became a living testament to the power of mindfulness, empathy, and self-discovery. The legacy he was building would ripple far beyond the boundaries of the village, touching lives across generations. And so, the first chapter of Rohan's extraordinary journey came to a close, not as an ending but as the foundation for something even greater, a transition to the next part of the story, where his teachings would continue to evolve and inspire. The village, nestled in the heart of the Nepalese valleys, had transformed since Rohan's return. His teachings began to weave themselves into the fabric of daily life. Children practiced mindfulness under the Bodhi tree, elders shared stories of compassion during gatherings, and the villagers approached life's challenges with newfound resilience. Rohan's wisdom had not only brought tranquility to their hearts, but also instilled a sense of unity that bound them together. Yet, this was only the beginning. One crisp morning, Rohan gathered the villagers and said, "The lessons I have shared are like seeds. They require nurturing to grow into mighty trees. Today, I will tell you a story that reveals how this nurturing happens, not just through understanding but also through action." Rohan's voice, steady as the flow of the nearby river, carried them back to his days at the Himalayan monastery. After months of rigorous meditation under Master Li's guidance, Rohan had been given a new challenge, one that would test not only his understanding but also his resolve to practice what he had learned. "Master Li once told me," Rohan began, "wisdom is meaningless if it is not lived." This phrase became the cornerstone of what followed. The monastery's teachings were not confined to silent meditations or philosophical debates. They extended into daily life, where each action and interaction was an opportunity to practice emotional mastery. One such lesson came during the monastery's annual pilgrimage to a nearby village, where monks offered help to those in need. Rohan joined the pilgrimage with enthusiasm, eager to apply the principles of empathy and mindfulness he had cultivated. The journey was arduous, involving steep climbs and narrow trails, but the real challenge lay not in the terrain but in the interactions that awaited him. Upon arrival, the monks were greeted warmly by the villagers, who sought advice and assistance. Rohan noticed a man in the crowd who appeared agitated, his face lined with worry. The man approached Master Li, his voice trembling as he spoke about the failing health of his wife and the burden it had placed on his family. While others offered prayers and consolations, Rohan chose to stay silent, observing the man's pain with deep compassion. That night, unable to shake the man's story from his mind, Rohan approached Master Li, "What more can I do to help him?" he asked. The master replied, "Sometimes, the greatest help you can offer is presence. To truly listen, without judgment or distraction, is to give a gift that many do not realize they need." The next morning, Rohan sought out the man and spent hours with him. He listened as the man shared his fears and regrets, offering neither solutions nor platitudes, but simply his undivided attention. Over time, the man's demeanor softened, his burden seeming lighter. This moment became a pivotal lesson for Rohan. Empathy was not about fixing others' problems, but about walking alongside them in their struggles. Back in the present, Rohan's story struck a chord with the villagers. Many had faced similar situations where they felt powerless to help those they cared about. Inspired, they began to see their daily interactions as opportunities to practice presence and empathy, creating a ripple effect of compassion throughout the community. Yet, Rohan knew that empathy alone was not enough. True emotional balance required the ability to navigate one's own inner landscape. To illustrate this, he recounted another lesson from Master Lee, one that took place during a seemingly ordinary meditation session. The monks had been instructed to sit with their eyes closed, focusing on their breath, but Master Lee introduced a twist. Each monk was asked to recall a moment of intense emotion, anger, sadness, or fear, and to hold that feeling in their awareness without reacting. Rohan chose a memory of a heated argument with a childhood friend, an incident that had left him feeling both hurt and guilty. As he sat with the memory, Rohan felt the familiar pangs of anger and regret rise within him. His breath quickened, and his mind raced with thoughts of what he could have said or done differently. But then, he remembered Master Lee's guidance. Do not judge the emotion. Observe it as if it were a guest in your home. Welcome it, but do not let it take over. Rohan began to see the anger not as an enemy, but as a messenger. It pointed to his unmet need for reconciliation and understanding. Similarly, the guilt revealed his desire to act with greater integrity in the future. By the end of the session, the memory no longer held the same power over him. It had transformed from a source of pain into a wellspring of insight. This practice, known as emotional inquiry, became a cornerstone of Rohan's teachings. He encouraged the villagers to face their own emotional storms with courage and curiosity, reminding them that every emotion, no matter how uncomfortable, carried valuable lessons. One villager, a widow named Mira, shared how this practice had helped her. After losing her husband, Mira had been consumed by grief, which often manifested as anger toward those around her. Inspired by Rohan's teachings, she began to sit with her feelings, allowing herself to mourn without judgment. Over time, her anger subsided, and she found herself drawn to helping others who had experienced loss. Mira's story became a beacon of hope for the village, demonstrating the transformative power of emotional inquiry. As months turned into years, Rohan's influence grew far beyond the village. Travelers from distant lands began arriving, drawn by tales of the unemotional sage. They came seeking wisdom, and Rohan welcomed them all with the same humility and warmth that had endeared him to his own people. One such visitor was a young scholar named Arun, who had spent years studying philosophy but struggled to find peace in his own heart. Arun was skeptical at first, questioning the practicality of Rohan's teachings. Is it truly possible, he asked, to live without being ruled by emotions in a world filled with so much chaos? Rohan smiled and replied, "It is not about living without emotions but about understanding them. Chaos is inevitable, but peace is a choice." He then invited Arun to join him in a simple activity, walking through the forest at sunrise. As they walked, Rohan pointed out the interplay of light and shadow, the gentle rustle of leaves, and the songs of birds welcoming the day. Arun began to notice the beauty around him, and for the first time in years, his racing thoughts quieted. Later, Rohan explained, "The mind, like this forest, is full of distractions. But if you focus on what is present and beautiful, the noise fades into the background." This experience became a turning point for Arun, who later became one of Rohan's most devoted students. Inspired by his transformation, Arun began documenting Rohan's teachings, ensuring that they would be preserved for future generations. As the seasons changed, so too did the dynamics of the village. Challenges arose, failed harvests, disputes over resources, and the inevitable losses that life brings. But the villagers faced them with a collective strength that had been absent before. They saw each obstacle not as a source of despair, but as an opportunity to deepen their practice of mindfulness, empathy, and emotional inquiry. Rohan, now in his twilight years, continued to guide the village with unwavering dedication. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he called a gathering under the Bodhi tree. "My dear friends," he began, his voice carrying the weight of decades of wisdom, "life will always present challenges, but remember this. Your strength lies not in avoiding emotions, but in embracing them with understanding. Let every storm teach you something about yourself, and you will find peace even in the midst of chaos." The villagers listened intently, their hearts swelling with gratitude for the man who had shown them a path to resilience and harmony. Little did they know, this gathering would mark the beginning of Rohan's final chapter, a chapter that would solidify his legacy for generations to come. The sun rose over the village, casting a golden hue on the familiar Bodhi tree under which so many lessons had been shared. The villagers knew this day carried a sense of significance they could not yet name. Rohan, their beloved teacher and guide, had been spending more time in solitude, meditating for hours each day. His presence, though as serene as ever, seemed imbued with a deeper stillness, as if he was preparing for a transition that only he could perceive. As the villagers gathered under the tree that morning, Rohan joined them, his movements slow yet deliberate. His face, lined with years of wisdom, radiated a calm that filled the air with a profound sense of peace. With a voice steady and clear, he began, "My friends, the time has come for me to impart the final lessons of this journey we have shared." The villagers fell silent, hanging on his every word. Rohan recounted his earliest days as a young boy, filled with emotional turbulence and longing for clarity. He spoke of the monk who had first introduced him to the concept of mindfulness, and of Master Li, whose teachings had deepened his understanding of the mind and emotions. These memories, woven with lessons from his own experiences, formed a tapestry of wisdom that now culminated in the insights he wished to leave behind. One of the core teachings Rohan shared that day was the importance of impermanence. "Nothing in this life is permanent," he said, gesturing toward the leaves fluttering in the breeze. "Just as the seasons change and rivers carve new paths, so too do our emotions, circumstances, and even our relationships. To resist this natural flow is to invite suffering, but to embrace it is to find freedom." To illustrate this, Rohan told the story of a mountain stream he had encountered during his journey to the monastery. The stream, once a rushing torrent, had been reduced to a gentle trickle during the dry season. Yet it remained untroubled, its waters flowing effortlessly over stones and through crevices. The stream did not mourn its loss of strength, Rohan explained. It simply adapted to its new form, knowing that the rains would come again. The villagers listened, some with tears in their eyes, as they reflected on their own struggles with change and loss. Rohan's words carried a profound truth that resonated deeply. Life's beauty lay not in its permanence, but in its ability to transform. As the day unfolded, Rohan spoke of another vital principle: interconnection. "We are not separate from the world around us," he said. "The breath you take is the same air that nourishes the trees, and the water you drink flows through rivers that sustain countless lives. When you harm another, you harm yourself. When you nurture another, you nurture yourself." To emphasize this point, Rohan invited the villagers to participate in a simple exercise. He asked them to form pairs and share something they appreciated about the other person. The exercise, though seemingly small, created a ripple of warmth and understanding that spread through the group. Many realized for the first time how interconnected their lives truly were, not only with each other, but with the natural world that surrounded them. Later that evening, as the stars began to emerge, Rohan shared a final story, one that held the essence of his teachings. He spoke of a candle burning in a dark room. "The flame," he said, "is like the human spirit. It provides light, warmth, and guidance, but it is also vulnerable to the winds of life. To protect this flame, you must create a space of stillness within yourself, a space where it can burn brightly, undisturbed by the tempests around it. The villagers sat in awe, absorbing the simplicity and depth of Rohan's words. They realized that the path to emotional balance was not a quest for perfection, but a journey of continual growth, shaped by the choices they made each day. As the days turned into weeks, Rohan's health began to wane, yet his spirit remained unshaken. One morning, he gathered the villagers for what would be his final address. Under the Bodhi tree, where so many of his teachings had been shared, he spoke with a voice that carried both strength and tenderness. "My dear friends," he began, "I have shared with you all that I have learned in this lifetime. Now, it is up to you to carry this wisdom forward, not only for yourselves, but for those who will come after you. Remember, the path to peace and balance lies not in denying your emotions, but in understanding them. Let empathy guide your actions, and let mindfulness anchor your spirit." The villagers, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that Rohan's time among them was nearing its end, promised to honor his teachings. Tears streamed down their faces as they expressed their gratitude, knowing that his presence had forever changed their lives. On a crisp morning not long after, Rohan passed peacefully under the Bodhi tree, his serene smile a testament to the life he had lived. The villagers, though grief-stricken, found solace in the legacy he had left behind. They vowed to uphold his teachings, practicing mindfulness, empathy, and self-awareness in their daily lives. In the years that followed, the village transformed into a haven of wisdom and compassion. Pilgrims from distant lands continued to visit, drawn by the story of Rohan and the enduring impact of his teachings. The villagers, inspired by Rohan's example, welcomed these seekers with open hearts, sharing the lessons that had brought them peace. Rohan's story, passed down through generations, became a timeless parable, a reminder that true emotional balance was not about suppressing feelings, but about understanding them and responding with grace. His teachings spread far beyond the village, touching the lives of countless individuals who sought a path to inner peace. As the sun set over the village one evening, a young child sat under the Bodhi tree, listening to the elders recount stories of Rohan's life. The child, filled with wonder, asked, "Will Rohan's spirit always be with us?" The elder smiled and replied, "Rohan's spirit lives in every act of kindness, in every moment of mindfulness, and in every heart that seeks to understand. As long as we carry his teachings, he will always be with us." And so, the legacy of Rohan, the unemotional sage, continued to inspire, guiding people toward a life of balance, compassion, and wisdom. Thank you for joining me on this Zen-filled journey. If you found inspiration in this story, I warmly invite you to subscribe to Buddhism in Modern Life for more tales of wisdom and tranquility. Share this story with your friends, leave a comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to hit the like button. Your engagement fuels our shared quest for enlightenment.